So you own a TPI equipped bike and you're ready to move on from the OEM stock issued oil. Well, like most other fluids, it's always best practice not to mix different oils. So to play it safe, it would be a good idea to completely drain the stock oil out of the bike and to replace it with the new oil. We are going to be walking you through the procedure on this 150 on draining the existing stock fluid and installing Blendzall caster in it. Now these instructions are going to be specifically for the 150, but the means and methods are going to be similar for the other bikes. But please follow the manufacturer's instructions on bolt torque specifications and on repriming the oil pump. All right guys, so let's get to it. So the first thing we're going to do is remove the seat. All right, so the next step is going to be removing the expansion chamber so we can get our fingers in to access the bottom of this tank. All right, so now we're going to remove the electrical plug that runs the oil pump for the TPI system. So what we do is remove the plug and just leave it out of the way, make sure that no oil can drip on it when you start to drain the tank. All right, so the next thing to remove is this screw that is holding the oil pump in place. So the next step is to take this little hose clamp and slide it back a little bit so we'll be able to take the pump off. So the pump is ready to be pulled off of the tank line, but we have to do a couple of things first to make sure that we catch all of the oil. First, I'm going to put a rag up in here to catch any residual oil that falls for when we pull the line off of the bike and plug in our drain hose. Okay, so what I've made here is I've made a drain hose out of probably an 18-inch long piece of gas line. And this here is a connector that I bought at the auto parts store. This is for repairing vacuum hoses in a car. This is a 3/16 inch size. I don't know if you guys can see that, but it's 3/16 inch. And what we're going to do is we're going to pull the pump off and we're going to connect this to the line that comes out of the tank. Now, to make sure that it doesn't start flowing onto the ground right away before I get the catch can under it, I put a bolt at the end of the line, and that's going to prevent the oil from flowing completely, and it'll give us a chance to get the pan ready. So this is really the only tricky part that I have found is disconnecting the pump and getting this line on as quickly as possible, so as little bit of oil spills as possible. Right here you can see that line is now attached to the end of the hose that goes into the tank. So now we're going to go ahead and take this cap off, and that's going to allow air to get down into the tank and allow it to drain completely. Okay, so now we're going to take the bolt out of the hose and the oil should start flowing pretty quick. All right, so it's flowing, and we were kind of interested in this part because we didn't know how fast this oil was going to come out. Okay, it's been several minutes now and we're starting to get some fluid out. Again, it isn't coming out extremely fast, but the drain hose is definitely working good, and we're just seeing how long it's going to take. We are looking at the level of the tank here, so you can see it's gone down a little bit. So the bottom of the tank is right here, and right now the level is about right here. So we can actually monitor the tank level, and it's probably going to take maybe 5-10 minutes. So we'll circle back when the oil is completely drained. All right, guys, it's been about 10 minutes and the oil has stopped draining from the tank, and it looks like it's completely run dry. The hose has a little bit on the tip there, but looks like we got just over 16 ounces. So this holds 19 ounces total, so it probably wasn't 100% full. Next step that we're going to do is we're going to add a little bit of the racing caster to the system, and we're going to see if it starts flowing clear. And the reason why is we want to see if we can flush a little bit more out of that tank with the racing caster. So now we're adding a little bit of the Blendzall, and I'm going to probably put a couple of ounces down there and see what we get. It's probably going to take a little bit of time for it to come out. I don't know if you guys can see that, it's starting to run out now. So it's still draining. Of course, this again is draining slowly, just like the Motor X, but it definitely has cleared up. There is no more red. So it got red there right at the very end. There's still a little bit in there. All right, so we put another ounce or two of the Blendzall in the tank, and we're going to see if it runs. Right now it's running pretty clear, thinking that we flushed a good bit of it out. The first time we did it, there was a little bit of red that came out right at the bottom, so we're thinking there was still a little bit of residue left. So we are trying to flush out as much of the original oil as we can. All right, so now that we have added probably up to maybe 3 or 4 ounces of Blendzall to the tank, the tube finally emptied and it is clear. Now we can continue on with finishing the process. All right, so the next step is going to be disconnecting the drain line, which we know that nothing's really going to come out of it now. And we're going to basically clean this up a little bit here. All right, so now we're ready to put the pump back onto the line coming from the tank. Okay, now that we have the pump installed back onto the line from the tank and we have the hose clamp on, now we're ready to remount the pump back to the bike. So the last part in this process is to bleed the remaining Motor X oil out of the line that comes from the oil pump down into the carburetor. What we're going to do is we're going to disconnect this line, and then we're going to do the prime procedure to run the Blendzall through the line, and it will purge all this out. So the first thing we want to do is take this line off the carburetor. Now, as you can see, there is a hose clamp right here that connects to the brass nipple. We're going to remove that hose clamp and then pull the line off of the carburetor. Okay, so the line is now disconnected, and you can see that the oil was not going to flow out of the line. Now we could disconnect it here at the pump, but the pump is still going to have fluid in it. So what we are going to do is we are now going to prepare the bike for its priming procedure, and when the pump primes, we take it off of the carburetor, so then it primes into this rag, and then we can wait until the oil runs clear. Then we know that the Blendzall is completely through the entire system. In order to prime the pump, we have to get to the diagnostic connector. Now on this particular model, it is underneath the ECU. So what we have to do is we have to pull this ECU up, and the way to do that is to we have to push these rubber grommets through. Okay, so that's popped through. Now we can access the diagnostic plug. All right, so the last thing that we have to do prior to priming is plug the pump back in. We left it unplugged just to make sure there were no shorts and no oil got onto the plug. so it pushes on with a snap. So the priming procedure for this bike is to hold the throttle. We're going to hold the throttle open, and we're going to plug the wake-up connector into the diagnostic plug. And we're going to hold the throttle for 5 seconds, and we're going to release it, and then the pump is going to prime. Now, I'm not going to show you that process because I'm going to have the camera down here on this line, and we're going to watch and see how much oil comes out of this line and if we purge all of the Motor X out of the line. And then determine whether or not we're going to prime a second time to make sure that all of that oil is clear. Okay, all right guys, I'm going to hold the throttle open and we're going to plug in the wake-up connector. We're holding it for 5 seconds. And we're going to release it. And so far it's starting to run clear. And the priming has stopped. And I would have to say that that line is very clear. So we got one prime and we're ready to go. And now we're going to plug that back onto the carburetor and then replace the hose clamp. All right, the hose clamp is in place, and as you can see, this line is nice and clear. And now we know that the Blendzall has been primed through the pump, through the line, and now we're ready to go. Okay, so now we're going to put the connector back on and tuck it back underneath the ECU. All right, so we're going to pull those through. Everything is all secure. All right, the only thing left to do at this point is to get the seat back on and to put the expansion chamber back on, and we are 100% ready to go. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.